POV, the year is 2006. You get home from school, you turn on your Xbox 360, and you load up Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter. Probably one of the best games ever made, and arguably one of the best marketing campaigns a defense industry company has ever done, in ties with a video game company, Cry Associates, and at the time with Red Storm Entertainment. Of course, that game was just so forward-thinking. They played around with a lot of the concepts the U.S. Army was experimenting with at the time, and in many aspects, a lot of those things would make their way to the front lines, but just in a different way, or in a different form, or just kind of just a completely different spin on it than they originally envisioned. But it was really cool to see where they're going, and when you think about it, the Army, as it continues to advance technology, kind of wants to turn the battlefield into a video game to an extent to where you could see where all your friends and allies are and sync targets. Basically everything that we kind of take for granted in video games, they're trying to do in real life. But without further ado, let's jump in the video. Alright, so we have an awesome video for you guys today, but I want to thank two of the supporters of the channel today. The Hub AZ, which supplied the XM8 clone, allowed me to borrow it for a couple weeks. Big shout out to those guys. They got a couple gun stores here like Tucson and Mesa. Those guys are also an authorized Tommy Built dealer, so if you're looking for Tommy Built stuff, whenever those are available and released, check it out in their gun store and on their website. Also, a shout out to True Shot Ammo. They supply the ammo for this channel and all our ammo needs. And if there's anything you guys are looking for, they're one of the biggest distributors in the country. So chances are, if there's ammo you're looking for, they got it. We also have Infinity Targets, a great self-healing target. If you're looking to use something at the range and get most out of your training equipment, Infinity Targets is great. You can shoot it over and over again. They've been supporting the community and supporting this channel. Not paid for at all. Like, those guys are awesome, so be sure to check it out. But without further ado, let's jump into the guns. When it comes to the gun, I kind of mentioned it very briefly before, but basically this is an XM8 clone, and it's essentially built off an SL8 using a conversion kit from Tommy Built. They do the full conversion, and obviously I don't think they're doing them right now, so if you're looking for this actual kit, you kind of have to scour the internet looking for one. But as you can see, it's very, very faithful as a recreation externally of the XM8. And the XM8, if you don't know what that is, basically it was their bid to try to win basically the new service rifle contract from the U.S. Army. The U.S. Army was testing it for a long time. They teamed up with HK. They basically took the G36 and kind of put it in a kind of U.S. military theme body, I guess, if you will. I don't know. The train of thinking back then was just very different. You look at all the prototype weapons like the OICW and XM25. They were just coming up with some very interesting stuff because, there's no rails on here or anything. There's a rail here, but there actually would be a different optic, would be an ISMV. I don't have an ISMV, so the closest thing I could find that kind of had a futuristic look was the Meprolite MP22 or M22, which is actually basically has tritium inside. So it's kind of like a tritium ACOG, if you will, or a bunch of the other Mepro sites kind of act in a similar fashion. But I did want something that was kind of futuristic. With this particular configuration, a red dot works really, really well. Now, when it comes to the controls, it's pretty much identical to a G36. You've got your ambidextrous charging handle right here, and obviously with an empty mag in, it locks the bolt to the rear. You got your paddle here, and it actually has a, basically the paddle you can actually push with your, basically your index finger, or you can release it with your thumb. I prefer to release it with my thumb, but what's actually really interesting is that when you insert the magazine, I like to do a thumbs up grip, and then I'll press on the bolt release in here. So instead of using your index finger again to engage the bolt release, I use my thumb, sends the bolt home, and it's actually pretty quick to run. Not very slow at all. So, of course, it would be nice to be able to drop it with this hand, which you can, but I just kind of found it a little more reliable to use the paddle on the bottom with my thumb. It has a adjustable stock very similar to that of a Scar. I believe the Scar was kind of inspired by this, if you will. It's just very, I mean, this thing's like a fish gun. It just has a very unique profile to it. Obviously, the selector control is pretty much more or less like a G36, and even has a G36 kind of style flash hider on it. So if you're familiar with the G36, it essentially is like a G36 in a different body. And of course, the Army didn't end up going this way, but it kind of makes you think, what would it look like if the Army went with this platform? And I know what you're thinking. You're going to be thinking, like, where the hell do you put your lasers and stuff? Well, they were kind of trying to integrate that with the optic at the time, but looking at the way things end up panning out, I think the military made the right decision, but damn, would it be cool if they went with this? And, you know, the best example of that would be Ghost Recon, looking into the future, what the military would be like, because they had a couple really cool prototypes in that game. They had, obviously, the XM8 and the Cry MRC. Cry Associates came out with a lot of cool stuff at the time, and it was just a really cool experimental trial era in the military history, if you will. But yeah, no, overall, the gun's pretty accurate, and it shoots straight. Like I said, it was built off an SL8, and it's actually amazing how many things they change to get it into this configuration other than the exterior. They have to do a lot of modifications. Yeah, if you're lucky enough to own and find one of these are super cool. You probably don't want to shoot it too much because the kit is like a 3D printed, you know, body, if you will. So you definitely want to baby this if you have it. It's going to be more for looks than anything, but it does look really, really badass. And I did shoot a little bit out of this bad boy, but man, does it look cool. Now, when it comes to the gear, I guess we'll jump into that next. Let's go. All gun laws are unconstitutional, and you can carry in all 50 states if you're not a little bitch. But of course, there are some rare instances where you might be separated from your gun, or you might want to secure it in your home because you might maybe have kids or something like that, and they're still learning. But you know, other examples are you're traveling on an aircraft and you want to like lock your gun, or let's say you have to go through an event that has security screening, so you have to leave your gun in your vehicle. Well, something like this is awesome. This is the Stopbox Pro from Stopbox USA, 100% mechanical, tough as nails. Like this thing, you can like throw it off cliffs. You can like probably drive over this thing. I've seen some pretty crazy stuff with these stop boxes, but of course it's mechanical. You can cable lock it so you can secure it to like a hard point in your vehicle. These things are great. If it solves a problem for you, go ahead and check it out. But if you're looking for something that will not fail, this is it right here. Check it out. Now, when it comes to the kit, honestly, it's hard to find any of the original stuff, and the closest thing I could get was years ago I visited Red Storm, and my good friend Travis Gates, who used to work there, he was the authenticity guy. This was the guy who put all the realistic stuff in Ghost Recon and all the Tom Clancy games. And of course, one of the projects he worked on was Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter. So I actually got to hold some of the early samples, prototypes, if you will, mock-ups of the integrated combat helmet. And I know this is not exact, but it's close enough in helmet shape to the look. But then you also had the Cry Associates chassis, right? So this is the chassis that started it all. It's been in Transformers and all kinds of cool video games and movies since then. But this kind of diamond-shaped plate is kind of a very signature of the early era of Cry Associates and then Cry Precision. And it was really designed, as you can see, it has like 4 rows, or, you know, you can fit like 4 mag pouches on the front and has like a couple different rows of molly. The diamond-shaped plate actually has a bit of a standoff for airflow and for deformation. It was designed like if you got hit, the plate had some space to deform into the body instead of into you. And then it also has these really unique shoulder pads. A little bit clunky, a little bit unique, but they kind of do their job because they got ledges on each side so that when you shoulder a rifle, it would catch in there. So even though it was a little clunky, it kind of worked. So interesting to see how that went off. And this whole thing like swings open like a door, donning and doffing. So it's kind of similar to some of the other, you know, Cry plate carriers that are currently in use. And even when you look at how this inspired the next cage and chassis and so on and so forth, guys are kind of just using the better version of this that's just been around since forever. So, obviously Cry really kept pushing that concept into a much more, I guess, usable form factor and usable, designs and ideas. But it's really cool to see where it came from. Now, when it comes to the belt, I tried to get another replica just like this, is the early oldest type of Cry belt I could find, which kind of started the battle belt, gun belt kind of craze, as you can see. I've actually got a Safariland holster drop leg rigged up to my not inner belt, but like just a regular rigger's belt underneath, and then I've got the battle belt on the outside. And I've tried to get some period correct pouches as well. Like I said, this stuff is just hard to find. I take it for granted because, when I was growing up playing airsoft back in the early 2000s, this stuff was like everywhere. You almost couldn't even give it away. Now it's like unobtainium and hard to find. So I tried to get the best looking chassis that I could find. I actually had to modify this one to fit me because I'm so damn small. But we all remember the old concept, whether it's concept and experimental photos of U.S. Army guys testing this gear, or just, like I said, artwork from the video game, which is really, really cool. But yeah, no, the chassis I think is really cool. And part of it for me, half the fun is experimenting with different equipment from different time periods or different militaries or stuff like that, just to kind of get an idea of what it feels like. It's very similar to being like a reenactor, for example, which kind of want to feel the gear and you're like, wow, this is what it was like to wear this specific kit, and kind of in your mind compare it to what we have today, which is really cool. It gives you just greater appreciation of military history. But yeah, I'll give you guys a little kind of look around. You've got the Hydro basically kit, and that's actually the armor. You can actually add 2 giant hydro pontoons on the back. If you've ever seen the prototype images, there's like 2 giant massive things on the back. That's actually the hydration that adds onto this. But of course, I kind of want to keep it slick. Now in the game, they've got a radio pouch back here, and then obviously there's not cables everywhere because it's all integrated into their helmet. But it is really cool to see where they were thinking in the direction of where they wanted the gear and the technology to go. And like I can't remember if I mentioned it before, but in one shape or another, a lot of these ideas that they had made it into the military, made it into special operations in one way or another. And drones, of course, are now huge on the battlefield. And back in the early 2000s, it was a big deal just to have a MAV or an unmanned ground drone. Now they're just super prolific on the battlefield. There's almost practically a whole new job field specifically for that. But yeah, that's kind of the gear more or less. I think the last thing I would really touch on is the uniform. I know this is the Cry AC, which isn't truly correct, and depends on the time period when they were testing it. They would have been wearing like the OG Cry Associates uniform way back in the day. But I think it was great that as a marketing military kind of cross-promotional campaign that they got this stuff into video games and everything. And of course, that's why for us, it just holds a special place in our hearts. So I'll leave you with that. And then last but not least, want to give a shout out to a couple of the other friends that have been supporting the channel. Of course, Savior Equipment for helping with this awesome set. And also, if you are a gun guy, give Milsim and Airsoft a shot. That's the future of the gun industry when you think about it, right? And then also, you get a more holistic view of shooting by just being able to go to these events that are like 20, 30, 40 hours long versus just testing yourself in a 30-second shooting at the range. And of course, if you're an airsoft guy, you should do some of that stuff. You should do competition shooting and stuff because there's a whole world of fundamentals you're missing out. And I think if you want to be a responsible armed citizen or just an appreciator of military history, try both. Have a holistic view. Get a little bit of everything because that's how I got here. That's what I did. But yeah, so that's, hopefully you guys enjoyed that video on the kit, on the gun, a little bit of history. But dude, damn, this look, I'm just looking at the camera. This look does look pretty cool. I mean, like, there's something about that early special operations kind of like when multicam was brand new kind of look that just is a vibe. So thank you guys for watching. This is Spartan117GW, and I'll see you guys next time.